Before we get started, actually, I just want to address the fact that I am wearing a Bills jersey. The Bills are traveling to Kansas City to take on the Kansas City Chiefs in a revenge tour. It's going to be a great game. I'm excited about it. And I guess what would sum up my day today is I'm waiting all day for Sunday night.
Waiting all day for Sunday night! That was not even planned. Today we are talking about anxiety.
Yeah, like anxiety and depression is something that I think in the past several years people are much more willing to talk about and be open about it. But we just have had a unique journey with it. Anxiety in specific has been something that Ellie and I in our relationship have had to navigate through, and we've learned a lot through that. You know, from being like a 10th and 11th grade kid to where we are now. And we don't want to act like we know everything about it, but we just wanted to share our journey because anxiety is something that's very real and it affects your life a whole bunch. Mm-hmm. And so we just want to be real with you and just share in the hopes that it'll provide maybe a little bit of insight or encouragement to somebody that might need it.
Definitely. I think that, like Brennan was saying, anxiety is such a common thing, but we don't talk about it enough. So, just get into it?
Yeah, let's get into it.
Okay. So as you probably know, Brendan and I started dating in high school. And I would say that anxiety, and I guess it was more just like fear and worry is what I thought it was, has always been kind of a part of who I am. But in terms of when we started dating, I think in high school, it was a lot of performance anxiety. Like I really struggled with academics. Taking tests was almost debilitating for me. I would study like endlessly and then go, and I was prepared and I was ready, but by the time I got into the classroom or the testing environment, I would just crumble. Like I remember there were times that I was sitting at my desk and just like unable to function because I was so anxious.
And when we started dating in high school, you know, she mentioned that she had issues with performance anxiety, and that was something that was totally new to me because I've never dealt with anxiety in any way, shape, or form. Maybe performance for sure in school, but you know, I would go into a test without studying for a single minute, and just I didn't have a care in the world. Not worried at all. What happens, happens. And then she's on the whole other end of the spectrum where, you know, maybe she pulled an all-nighter and she's been studying for a week for this 12-question quiz, mm-hmm. and she's hyperventilating about it, like she can't breathe.
But at that point, I think it was just like, I don't know, like I felt like I was just a nervous person. Mm-hmm. And like, I noticed it a little bit more toward the end of high school. I played basketball and I was struggling so much with what I thought was exercise-induced asthma, which never happened to me during practices, never happened to me during like cross-country meets. But when I would start the game, I would be standing there like as they were doing the jump ball, and I couldn't breathe, like I couldn't function, and it would take like 5 plays before I could get into the game. So I asked my coach to stop starting me and to put me in after like the first 5 minutes. So anyway, yeah, that was like the extent of it in high school. Like I think I was really anxious about schoolwork and academics and sports. Mm-hmm. I think, and it didn't really go further than that.
So fast forward to college, life gets a little bit harder, school's a little bit harder, there's a lot more that you're responsible for, and we were super excited to get to school, and we just moved in, we're making new friends and learning how to navigate school when you're not living at home.
Yeah. And I think right off the bat, it was again like a big struggle for me. I loved school in college so much, but my first semester was the hardest.
I remember nights where Ellie would be having a hard time, and I would swing by and pick her up, and we just kind of go for a drive around in circles and just talk. She had a lot that was weighing on her, so we would just kind of drive around and unpack these feelings that she was having. And me having no understanding of how anxiety affects you from a firsthand standpoint, all that I could do was just listen.
I think like I remember just sitting in the car and like struggling, and all we could do was like pray.
Yeah, I think when you're a Christian and you have battles like this, a lot of times the first assumption that others might have, or even yourself might have, is that you aren't surrendering enough to God, and that if you would, that this weight would be taken off your shoulders. And we just found that was not the case.
But Grove City College is amazing in the fact that it provides free counseling. There's a counseling center, and it's free counseling all throughout your time in college. So I remember the exact moment I was sitting in one of my professor's offices and trying to explain my test anxiety to just prepare her and let her know that sometimes I have a panic attack in the middle of the classroom when I'm taking a test. And I was just telling her about it and letting her know in the case that that were to happen, so that wouldn't be extremely embarrassing. And so the first thing she said was, "Can I pray for you?" And the second thing she said was, "I think you need to go to counseling." And she's like, "Can I make a call for you?" And of course my like little 18-year-old beginning of college freshman was like, "No, I don't want to go to counseling, and also like that's so embarrassing. I don't want my parents to know that my first week at school I'm going to counseling." And there's, in my opinion, like there was this stigma with counseling. It was like, I don't want to be seen as needing counseling.
Right, or you don't want to be seen, you don't want your friends to know that you're not strong enough on your own to be
Totally.
or to hit the ground running at school.
Yeah. But that being said, I felt like making that first move was the only way that I was going to, I guess, like, get my professor to understand that I was, like, serious and not making it up. And so I agreed to it. I went to counseling that week, I guess. It was awesome. Like, the counseling center at Grove City is amazing. And I met with a wonderful counselor who had a lot of different suggestions and a lot of different ideas and a lot of different strategies that we worked on and we tried for that entire year. I continued counseling for that year. We tried like essential oils and breathing techniques. I was able to use those strategies in the classroom that helped prevent a panic attack. I was avoiding a panic attack in the middle of the classroom, and I would say that's all that I was doing. Like I don't think that counseling helped me to, like, I still felt that anxiety and it still crippled me.
For some people, like Ellie talked about those strategies that she was learning from her counselor on how to deal with anxiety. For some people that's enough. Being able to recognize that you have certain triggers, being able to recognize what the onset of a panic attack or just your overall anxiety feels like. For some people that does the trick. That works for some people, but that is not where our story ends.
And I think that those strategies allowed me to manage my anxiety throughout all of my college career. Like, I think if I didn't have those tools, that I wouldn't have been able to, I guess, perform and function the way that I did. So it was amazing. I guess I would just say the other like biggest blessing about Grove City being there was that I was surrounded by incredible friends who were Christians, and Brennan and amazing professors and those counselors who prayed for me and prayed with me, and that was the biggest blessing in the world. I think Jesus was with me, and he knew how I felt, and he knew what I was struggling with, and it was such a blessing that he was handpicking people to just continue to push me along and remind me that you are not alone, and you are human, and you are going to get through this. And that was amazing. But I think the hardest part is I was like, thank you, Jesus, but why can't you just take it away? Like, I would see so many people who weren't fazed by anything, like Brennan. My biggest question at that point is like, God, just take this from me. No matter how much I pray about it or give it away, it was still a challenge.
Yeah, and I think this whole journey is it's kind of God helping you peel back the layers on your anxiety. And I'm just thinking now, looking back, you wouldn't have the insight and the compassion that you have for your students had you not gone through anxiety yourself. Already in your first year of teaching last year, I heard story after story of Ellie noticing anxious patterns in her students where she could have a conversation with the parents and say, I'm seeing this and I think this might be this. And it's just so cool because not everybody has that. You've been gifted with that insight to be able to have the compassion for other people.
Definitely. That's a really good point. Brennan started his first job out of school, and I started my first year teaching. So this was just last year.
Yep. And I would say this is where the story takes a turn. And up to this point, you had learned how to manage your anxiety, tools that help. And then we hit your first year of teaching, and you were just hit with a whole new wave of anxiety.
Totally. Even with all of the newness, we were also faced with the hardest year, I would say, with COVID. I had 4 years of education to learn how to be a teacher in a normal world, and then I was entering into teaching 5-year-olds in a way that I had never ever experienced before, an experience that I had no idea how to navigate. So that was just another thing. But yeah, I'm trying to think of when I started really struggling last year. Honestly, there's not a specific point, but I remember coming home from school. I was living a little bit of an unhealthy pattern. Like, I was working a lot and not managing my time well. But at the same time, I remember like coming back and seeing Brennan and like him not even knowing like what to say or what to do because I was so
right. Ellie was, yeah. So Ellie hit this first year of teaching in COVID world where she was so overwhelmed by learning how to be a teacher, and she was coping with that stress and that anxiety by making sure that she was so prepared for the next day that she was staying at work until 7:30, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, like when the janitors kicked her out every single day. And this is great. Like, she's dedicated, she's working so hard, giving her students her best self, or so she thought. But her life was very lopsided. She's taking care of this anxiety at school, but then there's all these other areas of her life that the anxiety's piling up.
Yeah,
right?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I was doing the same kind of things that I had been doing in school, like running, making sure that I was running every day and trying to eat well and get enough sleep and read my Bible and all of those things that I know keep me afloat. But I was running out of time for them because of the nature of my year. It was just so challenging, and I felt like no matter how hard I worked, I never could get it all done. I think it was like winter time, maybe like March-ish time, when it started like really taking over. Like some pretty severe-ish kind of panic attacks that would just cause me to like not be able to even like function for a little while. Brendan and I would spend like a Saturday night and go out to dinner, and then as soon as like 8 o'clock hit on a Saturday night, I would start to have stomach issues. So I would get like nauseous, and then
all because you're thinking about school on Monday morning.
Yeah, right. So like I would know that Sunday is coming, and I hated Sundays because I felt like Sundays I had to work as much as I could to get ready for Monday. And so I would get really anxious on Saturday nights, and then I got into a pattern of not being able to sleep at all on Saturday night. I would like wrestle all night long and wasn't able to sleep, and I tried everything at that point. Like, I tried essential oils again, I tried CBD oil, I tried melatonin, everything, and nothing worked. And then it was getting to the point where I would wake up on Sunday morning and go to church, and I wasn't able to sit through church. It was the craziest thing. Like, I remember walking in to the doors at church and start to have like my heart would race, and then I would sit down and I could not function. I started to have like a panic attack in the middle of church, and it started to become a theme. So like it happened one week, and then it happened another week, and then it happened another week. And I remember leaving the service in the middle of a service and walking out and sitting in the car with my mom, because Brennan is the worship director, so he was at church. He was still in there, but sitting in the car and saying like, I don't know why church is such a trigger for me. Like, I've never had this issue with church before. I've never felt unsafe here, but I can't sit through a service, and I feel like crippled. Like I feel like this anxiety is debilitating to the point where I'm so anxious about school, and I'm so anxious about my performance at school that I can't be present here, and that Saturday nights I can't enjoy. I just remember that moment, like I was sitting in the car with my mom having a panic attack and sobbing and like not even able to get my words out, and she said, "You need to call your doctor." And so at this point, when I'm sitting in the car with her, she's absolutely amazing because she knows exactly what I'm feeling. She knows exactly what's going on, and she just keeps reminding me that I'm safe and I'm in control and that I'm healthy and all of those things. But even in that moment, she said, "You need to call your doctor," because I think she realized, and I realized at the same time, that I didn't really have control of it anymore, and it wasn't really something I was managing at all.
Throughout this whole thing, I had been learning what works and what doesn't work when Ellie's having these anxious moments. Sometimes, she'll be on the couch anxious, and the best thing to do is to get her up and moving and let's go out to dinner, and that is what does the trick. Sometimes we really have to sit down and talk through how she's feeling. But throughout the whole thing, for a little while, I felt like I had a little bit of control over those moments, where I think you did too. And, Ellie's talking about these episodes that she's having in church. And that is sort of when it switched from feeling like I had a little bit of control to, I would say, feeling helpless. Because there's nothing worse than being on the stage and doing your job and seeing in the pew Ellie just struggling and having to get up and leave. That's a really hard thing, and I had never felt more helpless in that moment, because all I wanted to do is go figure out what's going on and talk to her, give her a hug. When Ellie mentioned to me, we got home from church one day and Ellie said, "My mom thinks I should go talk to my doctor about my anxiety. What are your thoughts?" And I said, "Absolutely."
I just remember like coming home that day and just sitting here at this table with Brennan, and just like him being so kind and gentle. And what a theme that has been throughout all of this is that he doesn't necessarily get it, or he doesn't necessarily relate, but like the gentleness and the love and the support that he shows like through it all has been amazing. I remember sitting here and I was still struggling to breathe, and Brennan just put his hands on me and we just started praying. I was like, "So should I call?" And he was like, "I think so." And so I did. That Wednesday, I went to the doctor and we talked about trying anxiety meds. And a little backstory on that is that this is something that I talked about a lot with my counselors at Grove City, and continually decided against, because I didn't want to turn to meds. I thought that, like I said, I thought it was totally manageable through exercise. I thought it was totally manageable through doing all of these things the right way. But in this moment, I felt helpless enough that it felt like medicine was my last choice. And so I said something along the lines of like, "Is this the right thing to do?" And she said to me, like, "You've been praying about this for years, and what if this right now, the opportunity to start medicine is an answered prayer from God? Like, this could be your answered prayer." I don't know. Do you have a better way to say that?
Yeah, I think a lot of times Christians have sort of a stigma surrounding medication. And, Ellie and I just had a conversation around this time where, just as God created you to be the person that you are, God also created doctors and scientists and researchers who have been gifted to be able to create these medications that can take this weight off your shoulders. We didn't really think twice about it, because we believed the whole time that this was God's plan.
Yeah, and I think too, like something that somebody mentioned to me, have you ever heard of a doctor treating cancer with essential oils or with running or exercise? And I think that's when it clicked in my brain that there's a chemical imbalance. And in my situation, and that's not the case for everybody, but in my situation, there is a chemical imbalance, and an imbalance strong enough that natural remedies weren't working. So that being said, I decided to start taking anxiety meds, and as soon like 6 weeks, I would say maybe 8 weeks in, I mean, I think you can speak to it even more than I can.
Yeah, man. So she went on these meds, and we knew there was some weird side effects that would would happen in the first couple weeks of use, but you know, she kept with it, and a couple weeks later, it was like a page was turned. Yeah. And I just remember thinking back over like the last few days that we had spent together, and Ellie goes, "Have you noticed a change in me?" And that's when it clicked. I was like, yes, you are a totally new person.
Yeah.
And it was so cool to see Ellie just, she was free.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think too, when I started feeling that shift, like I started feeling so healthy. I felt guilty initially, and I was thinking to myself, like, I feel guilty that I'm feeling so good and feeling so much better after taking this medicine, but I wasn't feeling that way when I was trying to let God heal me, or when I was trying to let, like, I had been praying for so long for Jesus to heal me, and I never felt this free. I never felt this good. But as soon as I took this medicine, now I'm feeling that freedom. I felt guilty. Like I was like having this like internal, like, is this wrong? But I think that's where it comes to what Brennan was saying. Like, I've been praying so long about this. I've been fighting for so long, and I've been waiting and hoping that Jesus will heal me, and he has. And like, thank you, Jesus, for leading me to a Christian doctor who encouraged me to take this medicine, and that is like Jesus's power. I'm sure there are people out there who will disagree and who will say that that's not Jesus' healing, that's earthly healing. I know that like it is the Lord and his goodness and his miracle, because I feel free. There's just like a freedom in my life. It's amazing.
Yeah. Just to speak on how you were feeling guilty about this. You know, so many times when we pray and we ask for a certain thing, like, you know, we ask for strength, or we ask for patience. We think that God is going to just give us strength and give us patience, which he does do, but we don't expect it when we say that prayer. God is going to give us an opportunity to be patient and opportunities to be strong. This whole time, Ellie's asking God to take her anxiety away and to help her with this anxiety, take this weight off her chest. And, you know, she's expecting that if she's praying hard enough and reading her Bible enough and being the person the Lord created her to be, that at some point the anxiety will truly be lifted. And I believe that God has the authority and the strength and the power to do that. Totally. But in your case, he has this, you know, medication, and the whole time this is like the answer to that prayer.
Definitely.
And that's what it took for Ellie to stop feeling guilty about this.
Yeah, and there were so many things about it too. Like, I wouldn't have met all of my amazing professors at Grove City and friends and counselors who kind of carried me through this if he took it from me at that point. And so there are so many different reasons that I just believe that this was all part of his plan. I think as Christians, my hope is that we remove that stigma of medicine. Like there is nothing wrong with using a tool that God has gifted somebody to create.
And if you're a person that Ellie's story resonates with, you know, maybe you're somebody that's been dealing with anxiety and you're not sure how to deal with it, and you've tried everything. I would, you know, as a person who has gone in this journey with Ellie, and I think from Ellie who dealt with it firsthand, we would 100% encourage you to explore, or talking to your doctor at least about it. Because in Ellie's case, it changed her world.
So, thank you so much for sticking through it if you made it this long. We hope that our story was an encouragement in some way.
Go Bills!
Go Bills! See you later!